I've been focusing on this project with missing and murdered Indigenous people since last year when it was my impact project. I started it out as a little informational post last year on the Awareness Day for the missing and murdered Indigenous women crisis, and then realized that that didn't feel like I was doing enough, so I decided to move on to taking my senior capstone. So the missing and murdered Indigenous people crisis or movement started out as the missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls crisis, as the main victims were the Indigenous women and girls, especially those at young age or young women. But then more awareness spread and people realized that the problem wasn't just focused around women, but around everyone. So changed into the missing and murdered Indigenous people. The main reason why this is a movement and not just a crisis is the fact that most media and most government officials do not share stories. They do not spread awareness, they do not try to find the victims, or if they do, it's the bare minimum. Most of the work that has been done for each victim has been done by friends and family. So the main symbol for this crisis is a red handprint. As you can see in the little diagram picture that I made in the top of the slide, with little red handprint. They're usually placed over the mouths of activists or people who are wanting to spread awareness to kind of show the silence that every victim has faced. Okay. I first wanted to share some facts to kind of bring awareness to how big this problem is. A lot of you have probably already seen this from me before, but in 2016, the National Crime Information Center found that over 5,000 cases were reported to them, but out of that 5,000, only 100 were logged in the Department of Justice database. That means very few cases were actually searched for outside of friends and family trying to find their loved ones. This becomes a huge issue, though, when 75% of the deaths for 20 to 30-year-old natives are from homicides, violent deaths, unintentional injuries, and suicide. And that stat is from the U.S. Department of Minority Health. So when you add the large numbers of victims to the fact that it's not being searched for, or the victims aren't being found from government officials or just law enforcement, we are introduced from a problem to a crisis. This isn't new information either. In 2016, the Urban Indian Health Institute went searching and digging through history and government officials and organizations that are based around finding missing people or fighting to find the victims and perpetrators of crimes. And they found that the oldest case they could find was from 1943. But we know that there's more cases out there. They just haven't been logged properly or reported properly. So for the victims of the cases, there is no proper age range. They spread across every age, with the youngest being younger than 1 year old, and the oldest being known being at least 83. In this slide, you can see a poster that I designed. There's 5 victims on there. 3 of them are young women, one of which being Savannah LaFontaine Graywind, who inspired the Savannah Act, which is one of the main acts that pushes government and law enforcement to act on the cases that are reported and are able to have enough evidence that something's wrong for the enforcement to actually proceed. But there's also 2 kids here. The boy on the bottom he was reported missing at 13 years old, and he would be over 23 right now. He has still not been found. The little girl on the top was reported missing in the early 2020s, and from what I know, she has also not been found, and she was between 2 or 3 when she was reported. But But so for my project, I wanted to spread awareness of this, to kind of bring faces and names to the victims, and to spread awareness to outside of what the media and the governments have already been doing, because it just hasn't quite been enough for the wide range of how big this problem is. So my first goal was to create and keep up a newsletter to continue spreading this awareness, and then I wanted to build a foundation of ground knowledge and background information for myself and for other people, to then start being able to interact with those who are directly impacted or have direct connections to this movement, to kind of get their own stories and to get more direct stories from either victims' loved ones or those who know the victims' loved ones. Kind of, again, continue spreading awareness and share stories that aren't being shared. And then in the end, my future goal is to be able to use the information I can gather to push legislation and to more directly assist Indigenous people. Because while I don't have direct connections, there are so many people that do, and they don't have enough help. So far, I have created the newsletter. I have at least 5 posts that I've already posted. I started this out posting every other week, but due to some health issues, I haven't been able to keep that up for a bit. But I do have my next post almost ready to come out, and that's over a individual case that popped up recently for Cole Brings Plenty, who was a well-known actor, a young man, and the case is confusing and there's a lot of mixed information, which kind of is similar for every single case out there. But I want to continue sharing their information and sharing information about the crisis and the movement in general. So to know more about this, I've shared both the link, which is simple and easy to record and write down, and then also the QR code that you can visit. They both do have a pop-up that says, hey, sign up. I would love it if you guys can, but I do understand that sometimes getting emails is a lot. So feel free to say no thanks, but I do encourage you to at least visit the website, visit the site, and to read more about what's happening. Does anyone have any questions?
Where do you, like, post-secondary education, where do you, like, see yourself, like, continuing with this? Is it with a blog? Is it getting with an organization, joining an organization?
I know that I'm planning on going to university for graphic design. So for that itself, I don't have any direct connections with wanting to do this, but I do know that in the very least, I'm going to keep up this newsletter as long as I can, because there's always new information, whether that's from the past or from the future, because this isn't something that's just going to stop. But I would love to be able to join an organization to do this for a living. But again, for now, I just want to give up this newsletter.